I would like to talk about the connection between the lost tribes of Israel and Japan. The 10 lost tribes of Israel were scattered across the world, including regions along the Silk Road, and they even made their way to Japan. I have come to this belief after studying Japanese traditions and examining their DNA. Since any humans were not originally from the Japanese archipelago, we have to consider that all the Japanese are descendants of immigrants who arrived in ancient Japan from other places. It is generally believed in Japan that there were 3 major waves of immigration to ancient Japan as follows. Firstly, Jomon people. The initial immigrants to ancient Japan, they primarily relied on hunting and gathering, and they thrived during the Jomon era. It is said that they shared common DNA with the Buryats who currently reside in the southern-eastern part of Russia. Secondly, Yayoi people. They introduced rice farming and shaped the Yayoi era. It appears that they migrated from the southern part of China. Thirdly, Yamato people. They brought the Shinto religion, and their first emperor, Jimmu, established the Yamato kingdom in Japan. The traditional view is that the Yamato kingdom was founded in 660 BCE, although there are alternative theories. The pictures are ancient clay images around the 3rd century CE of the Yamato people who have peyot Israeli hairstyle. The third one, Yamato people, were distinct from the earlier Jomon and Yayoi peoples. I believe they were originally ancient Israelites because the Jomon and Yayoi people had facial and body tattoos as recorded in the Gishi Wajinden, which is the records of 3 kingdoms written in China in the 3rd century CE. The text mentions that all men and women in Western Japan, that is the Yayoi people, had facial and body tattoos. However, the Yamato people did not have tattoos. In the Japanese chronicles Kojiki, written in the 8th century CE, there is an account of a Yamato individual being surprised to see a man with a tattoo on his face. The Shinto religion was introduced by these Yamato people, and the adherents of Shinto have never had tattoos since ancient times because they believed in keeping their bodies clean and unblemished. The emperors of Japan also do not have tattoos. Similarly, ancient Israelites did not have tattoos, as it was forbidden in the Bible. The Yamato people likely originated from the Middle East, traveled along the Silk Road, and eventually arrived in Japan. In fact, we can find descendants of the lost tribes of Israel in regions such as Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, Kashmir, Myanmar, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Sichuan province of China, Kaifeng China, and others, all along the Silk Road. The eastern end of the Silk Road is Japan. Ancient Israelites had a fascination with the East, as the Bible mentions their worship of the rising sun in the East in the book of Ezekiel. Although this pagan custom was later eradicated in the southern kingdom of Judah, the lost tribes of Israel likely continued to practice it. It is natural to assume that the Yamato people, descendants of the lost tribes of Israel, reached Japan, often referred to as the land of the rising sun. The term Yamato holds great significance in Japan and is even used as a nickname for the country itself. However, the majority of Japanese people are unaware of its etymology. According to Jewish researcher Joseph Eidelberg, Yamato likely originated from the Hebrew term Ya'umoto, which translates to Yah's nation, Yahweh's nation, or God's nation. The Bible says that ancient Israelites had pronounced the name of Yahweh even in greetings like, "Peace of Yahweh be with you," before Jews prohibited pronouncing it. Shinto, which the Yamato people brought, means in Japanese, the way of God. The ancient Israelite religion was also referred to as the way of God in the book of Job or Deuteronomy. Shinto and the ancient Israeli religion share many similarities in various aspects. I consider Shinto to be the Japanese version of the ancient Israelite religion. While we may observe some deviations in today's Shinto, if we strip away those elements, we will find the original Shinto. The present-day Shinto is commonly believed to be a polytheistic religion with a belief in multiple gods. However, according to Yoshisada Amabe, the former priest of the esteemed Kono Shrine, in his book Gensho no Saiko Shinto Yamato Chote no Shigen, Shinto was originally a monotheistic religion centered around the belief in one and only God. This God was referred to as Omototsukami, meaning the God of all origin, or Ame no Minakanushi, meaning the Lord at the center of heaven. Ikarimaru Watanabe, a renowned Shinto scholar, also states in his book that this God is the same as the biblical God Yahweh. It is also important to note another significant immigrant group called the Hata clan, who arrived in Japan many years after the Yamato people. According to the Nihon Shoki, Japanese chronicles established in 720 CE, the Hata clan migrated from Kunyue, located near Kyrgyz, in today's Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region in China, to Japan during the 3rd or 4th centuries CE, with a large population of thousands of people. By examining their customs and actions, researchers speculate that they might have been a part of the lost tribes of Israel who had converted to ancient Eastern Christianity. Professor Yoshiro Saeki suggests that Central Asia had already experienced significant Christianization by the 2nd century CE. In the regions of their homeland, Kunyue, there is a land known as Yamato, which could possibly have been the name used by the Hata clan to signify Yah's nation or Yahweh's nation, the nation of God, just like the name of the Yamato people. Furthermore, based on archaeological findings, the city of Haran in present-day southeast Turkey, where Abraham and Jacob once resided for a period of time, as well as the neighboring regions inhabited by Hebrews and Arameans, were referred to as Yamat. In the epitaph of Assyrian king Shalmaneser III, he mentions, "I descended to the cities of the people of Yamat." It is plausible to speculate that the ancient Hebrews and Arameans may have referred to themselves as Yamat or Yamato, meaning Yahweh's nation, further supporting the connection between their identity and the concept of Yahweh, their God. The city of Haran is located in the Togama region of present-day Turkey. In the mythology of the Japanese Yamato people, it is mentioned that they originated from a celestial realm called Hara of Takama, or in Japanese, Takama ga Hara. However, this heavenly realm is described as having mountains, valleys, and rivers, making it indistinguishable from the earthly realm. This suggests that the Yamato people may have actually migrated from another location on earth, possibly from the west. Zenjiro Oyabe, a Christian pastor and Shinto scholar, proposed an interpretation that Hara of Takama originally referred to Haran of Togama, where Abraham and Jacob once resided. This region was also in proximity to areas where the 10 tribes of the northern kingdom of Israel were exiled. The first Japanese emperor is called Jim. According to legend, he led his tribe from the west, that is Kyushu, Japan, and migrated eastward to establish the Yamato kingdom in present-day Nara, Japan, in 660 BCE. The Yamato people followed the Shinto belief system, and the imperial bloodline has remained unbroken, with the current emperor being a descendant of Jim. The Japanese emperor holds a role that combines elements of both a priest and a king, resembling the ancient Israelite priestly kings. The crest of the imperial family of Japan traditionally features a flower with 16 petals, commonly referred to as the chrysanthemum crest by the Japanese. However, it is possible that the crest was originally inspired by another flower, such as the sunflower. This crest bears a striking resemblance to those frequently used by kings in the Middle East. The Herod's Gate of Jerusalem also has that crest. The genealogy of the Japanese emperors and their chronicles can be found in works such as the ancient Japanese chronicles Kojiki and Nihon Shoki. Rabbi Marvin Tokeyer, in his book Nihon Yudaya Fuin no Kodaishi, published in Japanese by Tokuma Shoten, suggests that the genealogy of Japanese emperors closely resembles that of the tribe of Ephraim, which was a royal tribe of the northern kingdom of Israel, mentioned in the Bible. Although the names have been altered, the essential elements and structure bear a striking resemblance. Therefore, I believe this is a solid evidence that the Japanese emperor originally descended from the tribe of Ephraim. The other tribes of the northern Israelites also might have immigrated to ancient Japan. The first Japanese emperor Jimmu has another long and official name: Kamu Yamato Ihare Biko Sumera Mikoto. In Japanese, these words do not hold specific meanings. However, Joseph Heidelberg provides an interpretation of the name as Hebrew words: Kum Yaumoto Ivri Bekor Shemerom Malchut. According to this interpretation, the name signifies the king of Samaria, the noble founder of Yah's Hebrew nation. According to the book Lost and Found, written by Rizbek, the main population of Kyrgyzstan in Central Asia belongs to the tribe of Manasseh, one of the 10 lost tribes of Israel. The Kyrgyz people have various traditions that are believed to have originated from the ancient Israelites. As part of their folklore, the Kyrgyz people often recount the following story. We, the Kyrgyz people, and the Japanese people were once brothers. In ancient times, there were 2 brothers. One who favored meat ventured into the western mountainous area and became the Kyrgyz people. The other, who preferred fish, journeyed to the eastern sea and became the Japanese. This tale is recorded in our ancient chronicles known as the Manas epic. Interestingly, the Japanese also have a similar legend about the 2 brothers. One favored meat and he was known as the Mountain Happiness, while the other favored fish and he was called Sea Happiness. The Kyrgyz Manas epic further states, many brigades fleeing the Kitai became the Japanese. The land seemed good. Their island named Shimon. It appears that these brigades departed from Kitai, that is Manchuria, crossed the sea and settled on an island named Shimon. It seems it is related to that the Japanese people called the Japanese archipelago Yashima. It is possible that the term Shima, meaning island in Japanese, originated from Shimon, and Yashima denoted the island of Yahweh. These settlers were considered the brethren to the tribe of Manasseh. Who was the brother of Manasseh? He was Ephraim. Consequently, it is suggested that the tribe of Ephraim and potentially other tribes eventually reached Japan with emperor and Shinto. Zenichiro Oyabe, in his book Nihon oyobi Nihon Kokumin no Kigen, provides a detailed explanation of the similarities between Shinto customs and those of ancient Israel, mentioned in the Hebrew Bible. According to Oyabe, Shinto bears resemblance to the religion of ancient Israel across various aspects. One of the fundamental teachings of Shinto is purity and impurity. For example, individuals who come into contact with the dead are considered unclean and must undergo a purification period of 7 days. This concept aligns with the ancient Israeli idea of impurity. The core principles of Shinto revolve around serving God and people with a pure heart and leading a clean life. Late Rabbi Eliyahu Avichail the leader of Amishav, a research group in Jerusalem focused on the lost tribes of Israel, discusses the descendants of the lost tribes along the Silk Road in his book, The Tribes of Israel. The final chapter of his book specifically addresses Japan. Rabbi Avichail visited Japan 3 times for research, and during his second and third visits, I accompanied him and his team to provide assistance. They visited various Shinto shrines and found that the shrines consist of 3 parts: the outer court accessible to everyone, and holy place accessible to certain individuals, and the Holy of Holies accessible only to the high priest. Rabbi Avichail noted that these structures resembled Moses' tabernacle and the temple in Jerusalem. In the Holy of Holies within a Shinto shrine, there is no idol present. In Shinto, the belief is that God is invisible, and the tradition does not involve the creation of idols. Instead, a round mirror or a gohei, that is, a wand with hemp and paper streamers, may be placed inside the Holy of Holies. However, these objects are not considered idols, but rather symbols to signify the sacred nature of the space where God descends. This parallels the practices in ancient Israel, where the Holy of Holies in Moses' tabernacle contained 3 holy treasures: the tablets of the 10 Commandments, Aaron's rod, and the jar of manna, all placed within the Ark of the Covenant. These treasures were also symbolic representations and not considered idols. Japanese Shinto has a portable shrine called Mikoshi or Omikoshi, which bears a striking resemblance to the Ark of the Covenant from ancient Israel. Both serve as a movable sanctuary, referred to as Mikdash in Hebrew, representing the presence of God wherever they are carried. Atop the Mikoshi, there is a legendary celestial bird known as Ho-Oh, symbolizing the union of male and female as it spreads its wings. Similarly, the Ark of Israel featured 2 cherubim with outstretched wings. During the procession of the Mikoshi, the Japanese people often chant Essa, a phrase that has been passed down through tradition without knowledge of its meaning or origin. Interestingly, this term translates to lift up in Hebrew. Additionally, they occasionally utter the phrase En Yara Ya without understanding its significance and meaning, but it bears resemblance to the Hebrew words Ani Alel Yar, meaning I praise Yah. In the Japanese imperial succession, since the time of the first emperor, there have been 3 sacred treasures handed down. These treasures consist of a mirror, a sword, and a bead. They are regarded as extremely sacred and are not made accessible to the public. While few had the opportunity to witness the mirror, some individuals claim that it bears inscriptions resembling Hebrew words. Speculations suggest that the inscriptions could be read as I am, in Hebrew Asher Yehiyeh, or Light of Yahweh in Hebrew, all Yahweh. Additionally, the bead among the three treasures is shaped like the Hebrew letter Yod, which can be pronounced as Yar, a shortened form of Yahweh. Ise Jingu, located in Ise City, Mie, Japan, is considered the foremost Shinto shrine. In ancient times, it underwent multiple relocations within the Kinki area before finally settling in Ise. However, even after settling in Ise, the shrine continues a tradition of periodic reconstruction and relocation to neighboring lands every 20 years. This practice bears resemblance to the tabernacle of ancient Israel, which was portable and moved during the Israelites' journey through the desert after their exodus from Egypt. Both the tabernacle and Ise Jingu are constructed using wood, and the simple architectural configuration of Ise Jingu bears many similarities to the tabernacle. The Jewish Encyclopedia notes that the Holy of Holies in the Jerusalem temple had 12 steps at the entrance, and similarly, the entrance to the Holy of Holies in Ise Jingu features 12 steps. In the Israeli tabernacle, there was a curtain separating the Holy of Holies from the holy place, and similarly, there is a curtain between the Holy of Holies and the area where people can pray at Ise Jingu. These parallels in structure and rituals between Ise Jingu and the ancient Israelite practices are intriguing and contribute to the understanding of cultural and historical connections between different traditions. The priests of Ise Jingu all wear white robes with hats, waistbands, tzitzit-like fringes at the edges of their hems, and ephod-like cloth. They resemble Levite priests who served at the tabernacle of Israel. One of the Ise Jingu's originals in its relocating times, Kono Shrine, located in Miyazu City, Kyoto, near the Japan Sea, holds a fascinating legend associated with its origins. According to the legend, in ancient times, there was a ladder connecting heaven and earth, and gods were ascending and descending upon it. Kono Shrine was constructed as the house of God, and the ladder eventually fell down, forming the Amano Hashidate sandbar in the sea, which is renowned for its picturesque scenery. This tale bears resemblance to the biblical story in which Jacob saw a ladder between heaven and earth in a dream, with angels ascending and descending upon it. Jacob referred to the place as the house of God. The story of Abraham and Isaac is also preserved in a Shinto festival. Suwa Taisha, located in Chino City, Nagano, is a shrine situated at the base of a mountain known as Moriah, which shares its name with the Temple Mount of Jerusalem, also called Moriah, that is Moriah in Hebrew. Around 4,000 years ago, Abraham brought his only son Isaac to the land of Moriah and attempted to offer him as a sacrifice there. At the front shrine of Suwa Taisha, there stands a building called Jukendo, which strikingly resembles the tabernacle of ancient Israel. In Jukendo's Holy of Holies, the Mikoshi Ark is placed on the day of festival, April 15, in the western side, mirroring the arrangement of the Israeli tabernacle. The Jukendo house matches the Israeli tabernacle in terms of size, orientation, construction, and purpose. In the Jukendo, a boy was bound with a rope to a pillar of about 1.5 meters long and placed on a bamboo carpet. A Shinto priest brought his knife down towards the pillar, creating cracks just above the boy's head. As another priest arrives on horseback, accompanied by the loud ringing of bells, the boy is freed. Subsequently, the boy rides on a horse and is celebrated by the local community as the source of their blessings. This ritual mirrors the story of Isaac, who was bound with a rope and placed on a pile of firewood for sacrifice. When Abraham lowered his knife, an angel intervened to prevent harm. Isaac became a symbol of blessings for nations. Today, Suwa Taisha annually performs a simplified version of this festival known as Ontosai or Misakuchi Festival. Prior to 1871, the complete ritual was carried out. The term Misakuchi is believed to be derived from the Hebrew words Mi Itzhak Tin, meaning from the story of Isaac. After Isaac's release, Abraham discovered a ram caught in a thicket by its horns and offered it as a sacrifice in place of Isaac. Abraham referred to the ram as the one that God had provided. Similarly, during the Misakuchi festival at Suwa Taisha, they had conducted the sacrifice of deer until 1871. In ancient Japan, there were no sheep, which may explain why they utilized deer, a kosher animal, instead. They sacrificed 75 deer, but every year they would find a deer with a split ear. This particular deer was considered special, believed to be the one that God had provided. It's possible that the ram sacrificed by Abraham also had a split ear due to the thicket it was caught in. I used to wonder why 75 deer were sacrificed at Suwa. Furthermore, Suwa Taisha used to perform 75 ceremonies every year, showing a clear preference for the number 75. Interestingly, our Bible provides different accounts regarding the number of people who went down to Egypt with Jacob. In the book of Genesis, it mentions 70 individuals, whereas in the New Testament, Stephen's preaching in Acts chapter 7, verse 14 states that Jacob went with 75 people. This difference arises because Stephen was referencing the Septuagint, the Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible. Additionally, the Samaritan Torah, which was used by the 10 tribes of Israel, also mentions the number 75. It appears that there were two distinct traditions regarding the count 70 and 75. And both could be correct depending on whether one includes concubines or children of concubines in the tally. Regardless, the number 75 held special significance for the 10 tribes of the northern kingdom of Israel. The number 75 holds significant importance also at Shirahito Shrine in Mima City, Tokushima, Japan. The shrine follows a tradition where 75 carefully selected parishioners serve as protectors of the shrine. Additionally, the shrine celebrates a festival where the Mikoshi Ark, resembling the Israeli Ark of the Covenant, is carried up to the mountaintop on the 17th day of the 7th month. This event brings to mind the story of Noah's Ark, which came to rest on the mountains of Ararat on the 17th day of the 7th month, Genesis chapter 8, verse 4, according to Professor Avigdor Shohan, the Jewish synagogue in Kaifeng, China, which has a tradition associated with the lost tribes of Israel, also has ever protected by 75 parishioners. The number 75 must have been characteristic to the lost tribes of Israel. Indeed, the real shrine of Shirahito Shrine, called Iwasaka Shinmei, is constructed by stacking natural stones on a hill, creating a visual resemblance to the high places of ancient Israel. The high places were elevated locations where religious rituals and offerings were performed in ancient Israelite worship. Takatoshi Kobayashi, the grandson of Emperor Meiji, who lived from 1852 to 1912, and Kaoru Nakamaru, also the emperor's granddaughter, who are now civilians, informed me that there has been a tradition of circumcision within the imperial family of Japan. This circumcision takes place on the 8th day after birth, similar to the Jewish practice for newborn boys. On the day of circumcision, the Jewish parents announce the boy's name, and their relatives and friends offer blessings. While present-day Japanese civilians no longer follow the custom of circumcision, there is a tradition known as Oshichiya, meaning the 7th night after birth. During this time, parents announce the name of the newborn boy, and their relatives and friends bless him. The 7th night coincides with the 8th day on the Jewish calendar, as a new day in the Jewish tradition begins at nightfall. I believe this practice may be a remnant of the circumcision custom. Similar circumstances can be found among the Chiamin and Shinlun tribes, who are said to be descendants of the lost tribes of Israel, according to Rabbi Eliav Avihail's book, The Tribes of Israel. Their tradition indicates that they used to practice circumcision but eventually abandoned the custom during their wanderings. Today, they only maintain the custom of announcing the boy's name on the 8th day after birth. In Japan, there are religious mountain practitioners known as Yamabushi. While they are currently associated with Buddhism, other Buddhist countries do not have the custom of Yamabushi. The tradition of Yamabushi did not originate within Buddhism. A Yamabushi wears a religious black box called token on his forehead with black cores, which bears a striking resemblance to the Jewish tefillin. Only Jews and the Japanese practice the placement of such a religious black box on forehead. Additionally, a Yamabushi blows a conch shell horn, the sound of which closely resembles the Jewish shofar. If one were to encounter a Yamabushi, they might mistakenly assume that the individual is a religious Jew. In Japan, there is also a legend of the Tengu, depicted as a mountain deity with a prominent long nose, distinctive facial features, and dressed as a Yamabushi. The Tengu is considered a mountain god. The name Tengu likely originated from the Kyrgyz or Central Asian word Tengri, which refers to a mountain god. On the mountain, the Tengu is said to bestow the sacred scroll known as the Torah scroll, Torah no Maki in Japanese, upon ninjas. The Torah scroll could potentially be a lingering memory or connection to the Torah scroll. The Torah scroll itself is not found in Japan because in 645 CE, a civil war erupted between Buddhists and Shintoists, resulting in the burning of the imperial library by the Buddhists. Consequently, many significant scrolls were destroyed. However, following this event, power was restored to the Shintoists, who began to govern Japan and issue imperial decrees. Joseph Heidelberg, in his work, The Biblical Hebrew Origin of the Japanese People, identifies 13 striking similarities to Moses' laws among the imperial decrees. This suggests that the ancient Japanese may have had knowledge of the Torah. I couldn't find any evidence supporting the claim that ancient Japanese had the custom of observing the Sabbath. However, among the Catholic Christians who survived the severe persecution on Christianity for 287 years in Nagasaki, Japan, there existed a custom called Sabato Yori, which means gathering on the Sabbath. This custom involved coming together for prayer and fellowship. According to the Christian survivors, this custom was not limited to Nagasaki area, but was practiced in various regions, suggesting its ancient origins. Additionally, Professor Yoshiro Saeki writes that certain areas of Japan had a religious Sabbath tradition with no relation to Christianity. Present-day Shinto does not include a custom of animal sacrifice. While certain shrines in ancient Shinto practiced offerings of deer or cattle, as there were no sheep in Japan, not all shrines follow this practice. It aligns with biblical teachings that animal sacrifice should only take place within the Jerusalem temple or Moses tabernacle. Jews also do not practice animal sacrifice due to the absence of the rebuilt Jerusalem temple. Regarding the question of Japanese and Jewish facial features, it's important to note that facial characteristics can undergo significant changes over 2-3 generations through intermixing of bloodlines. Ethiopian Jews, for instance, have black African features, while the Shinlun, Bune, Menashe people in northern India and Myanmar, who are believed to be the descendants of the lost tribes of Israel, have Asian facial features. This demonstrates that facial appearances can vary through intermixing of bloodlines. Joseph Eidelberg points out that there are numerous words in Hebrew and Japanese that share similarities in both meaning and pronunciation. In his book, The Biblical Hebrew Origin of the Japanese People, he provides a list of around 500 such words. I don't think all of them actually have the Hebrew origin, but about half of them may have originated from Hebrew. Additionally, I have personally observed a striking resemblance between the concept of Sheol, the Hebrew realm where people go after death, and the traditional Japanese concept of the afterlife known as Yomi. Both Sheol and Yomi depict a dark world filled with impurity, distinct from the Western notion of hell, and are believed to be the destination for individuals after death. Now, I'd like to talk about the DNA. The DNA analysis of the Japanese population reveals some interesting patterns that suggest a connection to Israeli origins. The Y chromosome DNA, which traces paternal lineages, shows 3 major haplogroups among the Japanese population. Firstly, approximately 10% of the Japanese individuals belong to haplogroup C. German people used to be believed belonging to haplogroup D, but now said to be mostly belonging to C. Secondly, about 50% of the Japanese individuals belong to haplogroup O. O is common among Chinese and Koreans. This lineage is associated with the Yayoi people who were immigrants from China. Thirdly, nearly 40% of Japanese individuals belong to haplogroup D. D is rare in Asia and the world. This lineage is believed to be associated with the Yamato people, who are considered the dominant ethnic group in Japan. According to Professor Naruya Saito of the National Institute of Genetics in Japan, modern Japanese individuals are estimated to have around 10% genetic connection with the Jomon people. It is believed that the Jomon people were closely related to the Buryats, a group residing near Siberia, whose majority carries the C haplogroup. On the other hand, the Yayoi people who migrated from China have a genetic lineage represented by haplogroup O, similar to that found in contemporary Chinese and Korean populations. Indeed, the presence of haplogroup D among nearly 40% of the Japanese population is rare in Asia and the world. It is worth noting that haplogroup D and E are typical among the descendants of the lost tribes of Israel and modern Jewish populations. Geneticists think that haplogroups D and E originated from the common ancestor known as haplogroup DE in the Middle East. It is evident that D and E share a common ancestor due to their identical genetic sequence known as the YAP, which is not present in any other haplogroups. Let's look at the DNA of present-day Jewish populations. DNA analysis of current Jews reveals several Y chromosome haplogroups, with the main ones being J, E, and R for both Sephardi and Ashkenazi Jews. The frequencies of J, E, and R haplogroups show no significant difference between the two groups. According to Professor Doron M. Behar and other DNA researchers, the frequencies are as follows. Haplogroup J is found in approximately 30% of both Sephardi and Ashkenazi Jews. And haplogroup E is found in around 20% of both groups. And haplogroup R found in approximately 20-30% of both groups. While there are small genetic differences between Sephardi and Ashkenazi Jews, there is no significant distinction between the two groups. This finding contradicts Arthur Koestler's theory that Ashkenazi Jews are descendants of the Khazarians, a Turkish nation who converted to Judaism in the 8th century CE. Geneticists believe that both groups basically share a common genetic ancestry that can be traced back to the patriarchs Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Present-day Jews exhibit these three major haplogroups due to historical genetic mixing. But how did it happen? There is an argument that the original haplogroup of ancient Israelites might have been J, because the so-called Cohen model haplotype CMH belongs to J. It is true that ancient Israelites had one haplogroup when Jacob and his family moved to Egypt. However, after their exodus from Egypt, the Israelites encountered and interacted with various foreign populations because many foreigners, written in the book of Exodus, chapter 12, verse 38, joined the Israelites as they left Egypt. These individuals were slaves or people from other nations who chose to leave Egypt with the Israelites. Moses welcomed them, emphasizing the importance of inclusivity and treating the foreigners as equals within the Israelite community. Moses instructed the Israelites to love and accept the foreigners, and if they observed the law of Moses and were circumcised, they could be naturalized and live as Israelites. This period marked the beginning of genetic mixing and integration among the Israelite population. In those days, it seems that the Israelites had haplogroup J and DE together. On the other hand, haplogroup R is European, so it is thought that R came into the Jews in their scattering times after 70 CE. But in the times before that, the haplogroup DE of the Israelites was parted into D and E. In fact, every Jewish group in the world now have E, while many descendants of the lost tribes of Israel along the Silk Road have D or E. According to a DNA test provider, the family tree DNA, the specific subtype E1B1B1, which belongs to haplogroup E, is found in all Jewish populations. E1B1B1 is found in all Jewish populations from Ashkenazi, Sephardic, Kurdish, Yemen, Samaritan, and even among Jobo Jewish groups. The renowned physicist Albert Einstein also carried this DNA marker. Interestingly, most Samaritans residing in the historical region of the northern kingdom of Israel have haplogroup J due to intermingling of bloodlines. However, the Samaritan Levite priests who have maintained their paternal lineage since ancient times without intermingling of bloodlines belong to haplogroup E. These Samaritan priests are descendants of the priests of the Lord who was sent to Samaria during the Assyrian exile to teach people the way of God. The haplogroups D and E, which are from DE, hold significant presence among the lost tribes of Israel along the Silk Road. For example, Uzbekistan Jews, believed to be descendants of the lost tribes, exhibit the haplogroup E frequency of 28%. Ethiopian Jews, known as Falasha, have a haplogroup E frequency of 50%. Igbo Jews in Nigeria have a high haplogroup E frequency of 90%. Haplogroup E is therefore prevalent among populations associated with the lost tribes of Israel. The lost tribes of Israel are also associated with haplogroup D. The Qian people residing in southwest China near Tibet show a significant haplogroup D frequency of 23%. Rabbi Eliyahu Avihail claims that the Qian people have preserved many traditional Israelite customs and are descendants of the lost tribes of Israel. Interestingly, haplogroup D is also found in nearly 40% of the Japanese population. By the way, I used to wonder why the Shinlun tribe, B'nai Menashe, from North India and Myanmar, believed to be descendants of the lost tribes of Israel, do not exhibit haplogroup D, E, nor J. Instead, the majority of them belong to haplogroup K or O, which are commonly found among Asian populations. This raises the question, why does their paternal Y chromosome DNA show a connection only with Asians? Scientists have conducted investigations specifically focusing on their mitochondrial DNA, which reveals maternal lineage connection. The results have shown a close relationship between the B'nai Menashe and the Jews from the Middle East, as well as Uzbek populations. I got to know the reason why they do not have Y chromosome haplogroup E nor D after I studied their history. During their period of wandering in ancient China, they were subjected to the rule of other nations, who often enslaved or killed the Shinlun men, preventing them from returning to their villages. Tragically, the women of the Shinlun tribe were often subjected to rape. As a result, the children born in these circumstances did not inherit the Y chromosome lineage of the Shinlun tribe, but rather that of the Chinese population. Additionally, in instances where a conquered nation resided in China, it was not uncommon for the men of that nation to be systematically eliminated. This further contributed to the difficulty in maintaining the paternal Y chromosome DNA within the Shinlun tribe. These historical factors help shed light on where the Shinlun tribe's paternal Y chromosome DNA reflects a predominantly Asian connection. The intermixing, enslavement, and loss of male lineage due to external domination and conquest have likely played significant roles in shaping the genetic composition of the tribe over time. It is true that when a population has undergone a turbulent history, the preservation of specific Y chromosome haplogroups such as D and E can become challenging and may even disappear entirely. This appears to be the case for the Shinlun tribe, as the paternal Y chromosome DNA does not show a connection to haplogroups D or E. However, their maternal mitochondrial DNA does exhibit a close relationship with Jews. Then, how about the theory that suggests the separation of haplogroup DE into haplogroup DNE occurred approximately 60,000 years ago? It is an estimation aligned with the evolutionary theory, which posits that humanity originated around 2.5 million years ago. However, as a creationist, I subscribe to the scientific creation theory, which asserts that various scientific evidence indicates a human origin about 6,000, 10,000 years ago, in accordance with the biblical account. Considering the scientific creation theory and the biblical description, it is plausible to propose that the separation of D and E took place several thousand years ago. Scientists also say that in times of a small population, the DNA mutation speed becomes very fast. It seems that the separation of D and E took place in the Middle East around the time of the exile of the 10 lost tribes of Israel. In fact, E is now mainly seen among the lost tribes' descendants living near the Middle East, and D is seen among the lost tribes' descendants in Asia. It is indeed noteworthy that haplogroup D is found among nearly 40% of the Japanese and 23% of the Qianmin in China. While DNA alone does not provide a complete picture, it is a significant indicator of genetic connections. When considered alongside cultural and traditional aspects, it can suggest a strong connection between the Japanese and Jewish or ancient Israelite populations.